Welcome back, episode 2. So, in episode 1, we established the problem. 28% of your time is spent selling, and every hour that you lose to noise essentially costs you $6,700 in revenue capacity. So, today we're going to talk about the fix. So, this isn't a time management framework, those are for people who do project management. This is more for people who sell, which means it has to account for the way that revenue actually works, which is in these rolling cycles that we all innately know. But I think it's a good thing to revisit because it'll help you start to think about your time. So, every time management framework you've ever seen, I think, in my opinion, is fundamentally flawed for salespeople because it's really built for people who project manage or ship code, write reports, manage projects. They have these like clean deliverables, clear deadlines, and they get a lot of immediate feedback loops. The problem with sales is that in sales, the work that you do today doesn't really pay you today. It pays you 90 days from now or even longer, which means that skipping proactive outreach this week, it doesn't hurt this week. It destroys next quarter. And so by the time you actually feel the pain, it's too late to fix it. So the rolling revenue engine is built around that reality. It's not urgency. It's not busyness. It's really this topic of revenue lag. So the best way to think about this is you have a 4-quadrant, one engine framework. Every single thing on your to-do list should be able to fit into one of them. There shouldn't be any exceptions. And the reason I love this is because it's not complicated. So let's go through each one. The red zone, deals that are MedPIC validated, renewals this quarter. You know the economic buyer, you have an active champion. The deal is moving through the procurement process. You understand the paper process. These are the things that get protected and also executed. The growth engine is the proactive work. And this, in my opinion, is the piece of the quadrant that is least executed against right now. So this is the proactive work that builds next quarter's pipeline. So this is outbound. This is multi-threading to new buying centers. This is strategic account planning. This is where the top performers live. And it's also where the rest of the team simply doesn't spend enough energy. You guys even admitted that on the survey. The noise is what sucks a lot of time. So this is the stuff that feels urgent, but at the end of the day really isn't important. So think credit memos, support requests, someone else's onboarding call. I'm not saying that these things aren't vital to running a business, but I am saying that these things have to be delegated. Otherwise, you will implode. The time traps are neither urgent nor important. So think of office hours that you didn't really ask for, or product roundtables, or feature release calls. The ones with essentially limited agendas or limited actionability. So these don't really get delegated. I would say that they either get eliminated or you can revisit them later. And we'll talk about ways to take all of the enablement, truncate it, summarize it, and put it into a dedicated block when we talk about time management. But 2 of these categories pay you and the other 2 don't. And that's really the point here. So the engine is about knowing which is which before you essentially click accept on a calendar invite and, gosh forbid, attend a meeting. All right. I want to just talk about the tale of 2 reps. So same team, same quota, same resources, completely different year. So let's start with Jenny as a hypothetical, of course. Jenny starts her day by checking Teams in bed, before she's even had coffee. She's already made 3 decisions. All of them are wrong decisions. A credit memo by 8 a.m., maybe an office hour session that she didn't need at 9:30. She then attends a product roadmap call at 11 that she probably could have read in 5 minutes at the end of the day. And by 2 p.m., she's essentially exhausted. And the reality is she hasn't made a single outbound call, touch, etc. She ends the day with 0 growth engine activity and essentially a full inbox. Contrast that with Samantha on the right. Samantha starts with essentially 3 priorities. Her first 3 hours are locked, no Teams, no email, no internal meetings. She's making outbound touches to her book. She's advancing red zone deals. She's essentially watering the growth engine. By 5:30, she's logged 5 outbound touches. She's prepped her biggest renewal. Samantha doesn't work harder than Jenny. I think that's the big takeaway. She just works on harder problems. And the difference is not talent. It's just essentially Samantha has a better operating system. So the most important law in sales is that almost nobody follows consistently. This guy, Jeb Blount, I really like him. He calls it the 30-day rule. Essentially, whatever you do or don't do, that's the key part, in any given month will determine the results 90 days later. So you skip your growth engine work in January because Q4 close got crazy. You just scheduled essentially a pipeline crisis for April. You skip it in February. May is going to be a very uncomfortable conversation with your manager and leadership. And here's what makes it so deceptive. It's tricky. It's nuanced. It's like the pain is delayed. So you skip prospecting this week, and really in sales, nothing bad happens the following week. You'll feel fine. Your pipeline looks okay. But really, it's not until 90 days later that the floor falls out. And we've all probably experienced this. Typically, when you clean up a forecast, um, month, and you're just like, holy crap, I have no deals in March. But the problem is by then you're in reactive mode. You're chasing unqualified deals. That's when bad behaviors start. So two of our ADs said in the survey, which I thought was really interesting, that they think about future pipeline, but they don't act on it consistently. So that sentence is essentially a perfect example of the 90-day crisis waiting to happen. So the engine never stops, and unfortunately, neither can you. So here's how to allocate your time across the book. This is a simple way to think about it. 60% of your time goes to tier one. These are active deals, highest potential accounts. This is where you are MedPick qualifying things. These are red zone eligible. And essentially, these need your highest quality, best hours, best energy, best focused, deep work. 25% goes to tier two accounts. So think of these with longer runway. You're building the relationship, you're mapping decision criteria, you're filling out the MedPick scorecard. These are essentially future red zone pipeline. And then lastly, the 15% goes to tier three. These are like early signal accounts, kind of long tail accounts. You need enough coverage to know whether or not they belong in tier two, but they're certainly not going to get any of your tier one time and energy. And the problem is the mistake that most reps make is treating every account like it deserves the same energy. It doesn't. The 60, 25, 15 rule hopefully forces you to be honest about where you're actually spending time and whether or not those hours match the revenue potential on the other end. So here's a weekly ritual that really can help you run the engine. Every Monday, 20 minutes before you open your inbox, because the problem is once you open your inbox, someone else is essentially setting your agenda. 5 steps. Capture everything that's on your plate. So sort it into 4 categories, the matrix. Obviously run MedPick, check on every deal that you're quote unquote calling the red zone. And if you can't name an economic buyer or an active champion, then it's probably not a red zone deal. And it's probably more wishful thinking, to be honest. And you got to go back in. You're going to decline or delegate at least 2 things from your calendar that are noise or time traps. This is going to feel really good, by the way. It's going to be awkward at first, but it's going to feel good once you start doing it. And then anchor your week on the 3 most important revenue activities. So 20 minutes on a Monday. If you do this, it will prevent 40 hours of reactive firefighting for the rest of the week. So anyways, in closing, the rolling revenue engine runs whether you're feeding it or not. So every week that you skip growth engine work, the engine won't stop turning. It just turns on empty. And so 90 days later, you're going to feel it. So this week, run the Monday morning protocol, 20 minutes, 4 categories, decline 2 things, anchor 3 priorities. Just start there. And I promise you, you're going to feel better about yourself and you're going to start to see the momentum move. So episode 3 is where we'll get into some actual tactics where you do calendar color coding, you block sacred selling time. And basically, there are ways to physically protect the hours where real selling happens. Link to the playbook below in the presentation, and I'll see you in the next episode.